Moody, you see his book coming out right there in the corner of the screen, The Doctor is Burned Out. Book coming out at the end of September. We are about to have an amazing, amazing conversation. I have to thank you, Jeff, because this is actually a part of a live stream show that you are hosting. And we were supporting the launch of it. And we threw out the suggestion, hey, could I come in and interview you as the kickoff to your live stream show? And I'm really grateful and honored that you said yes to that, because you have an amazing story. We're going to share some powerful tips today. So I'm welcoming you to your own show. Welcome.
I love that. I like to have a lot of support from my kickoff. So I really appreciate that.
I'm hesitating here because when I think about Jeff, it's been very meaningful. It's been a very meaningful moment in my journey to have been introduced to Jeff through a mutual colleague, Licky, who I had the pleasure of meeting at HPS. And here's this guy, Jeff, and he schedules a call on my calendar and he sends me this video, and it was like magic and fireworks from the beginning. I just felt like I'm all in with you. You have an amazing story. More than that, you have such an amazing heart and you are extremely smart. You're so caring and giving, wanting to help people. Yes, doctors, right, as your audience, will tap into your story here in just a moment. But the topic of the book is about burnout. Like, I've been burned out before and it was awful and it snuck up on me and I wasn't prepared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle my emotions. I didn't know who to talk to or what to do about it. So while your topic is really for doctors, maybe in this book, it's a global crisis that's happening right now. Talk to me a little bit about burnout and what you're observing.
Well, Amber, I want to say thank you. I'm so thankful to meet you and to have this opportunity and to really try to share this information with people. I think one of the studies show that 40% of workers now are burned out across the world. 10 years ago, it's 24%. So clearly it's getting worse. And I think obviously the pandemic and everything else has turned things up to kind of an 11 as far as burnout. Burnout is classically defined as kind of emotional exhaustion and lack of personal accomplishment, and just really almost, we would say, compassion fatigue. So you get to the point where you're so drained of any energy you have to give to someone else because of either personal factors or situational factors, work environment, all sorts of stuff. And it's multifactorial. And that's kind of one of the biggest points the three biggest points I want to tell people is that you have to realize that you're burned out. The first step in a 12-step program is realizing you have a problem. So you have to realize or consider that as a possibility. The second step is that it is multifactorial. And the third step is you really have to take action. So, I mean, those are the biggest things that I want to impress upon people as far as burnout. And it's very widespread.
So how does it show up? I mean, like, how do I know if I'm approaching burnout? What are some of the signals that I need to pay attention to?
Well, I think most people, and that's why it's a little sneaky. It's sneaky for people because it manifests different ways in different people. Some people, like myself, I had a lot of anger and frustration. Some people get sad or get blue. Some people have started to experience really difficult interpersonal relationship problems. They may be getting distant from their family and their friends. They maybe start to feel kind of hopeless and trapped and powerless to make changes in their life. So I think it's very difficult to peg one set of symptoms or one set of reactions to something and say that's burnout, because I think it's very personal. Well, it's very personal for me in general, because I got to the point where I thought about suicide. And that's another one of the very extreme parts of burnout is you get so trapped and hopeless, you feel like maybe there's nothing I can do and there's no hope. So I think I would encourage people that, the joke for me is if you think you've had a bad day every day for the last year, then maybe you're in burnout.
Oh my gosh. I definitely want to dig into your story a little bit more. Talk to us about life. When did it start? Like, talk to me about maybe school and to what you do now, but where were some of the moments where it felt like this triggered that and this led into that, and then before you know it, it snuck up on you and this is where you found yourself?
That's a great question. I really appreciate that. And I think everybody's journey is a little bit different getting to that point. But for me personally, obviously you go to medical school, you do your training and your residency. Those are very big, what do I say, undertakings and big kind of energy expenditures to get through those things. And those in themselves, studies show a lot of medical students and residents are really suffering from burnout as well. But I think what happened to me is, you get through your training, you get out in practice, and I'm in private practice, you have a lot of control of your schedule. And that actually went very well for like the first 10 years of my practice. And the kicker, and to tell the truth, in medicine, I hate to blame it on one thing, but I have to think electronic medical records have been more injurious and
Really?
harmful to physicians, and I think patients as well, because I think it has really eroded the doctor-patient relationship. Because I don't know if you've been to a doctor recently, but if your doctor is using electronic medical record, they're probably stuck staring at the screen, and they don't interact with you, which that is not why I became a physician. And then I think the other problem from a physician standpoint, the work involved all kind of fell to the physicians to make these electronic medical records work. And I'm very frustrated with the software makers in general that they haven't improved these in the last 10 years, but you would think, some smart guy at Google would have come up with something. But the frustrating thing is just that now, like what used to take me 20 or 30 minutes a day to document my interaction with the patients, now it takes at least an hour, hour and a half. And this is with offloading most of the tasks on other people in my office. So it's just been a real time sink. It's another hour or 2 hours a day at the end of an already long day. You're on call. I only got 1 hour of sleep a couple of nights ago when I was on call. A lot of, I try not to do this, but a lot of people talk about pajama time. Like they take their laptop home and they spend another hour to 2 hours a day at home trying to finish these records. And really there's been no study that shows that electronic medical record improves patient care. So it's a gigantic time sink. Billions of hours have been spent by physicians in the US trying to use these least favorite kind of software pieces to help document the patient encounter.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I mean, you can imagine as a patient, you can imagine the stress, the time challenges that, physicians face. You don't seldom think about all of the things that they have to do on the other end of it. A lot of patients are like frustrated because the doctor is late to come see them and they don't really get it, right? But there's
and I can tell you, like for me, the reason I'm late to see somebody is rarely because of patient care issues. It's because of trying to do the documentation and some of these other issues. It really it's almost a race now to try to finish the documentation before you try to see the next patient. I've done some speaking and done some surveys of the audiences. 100% of audience participants typically would say EMR is a big driver of their burnout. Usually 5 or 10% say it's seeing patients or doing surgery. I always tell my patients and other people that my favorite parts of the day are when I'm in the office or seeing a patient in the room or in the OR doing surgery. Everything else is sometimes a little frustrating.
My gosh. So take me to the moment when you had the first awareness, perhaps, or an awareness that, okay, something's not right. I need help, or I'm definitely burned out. My thoughts are getting a little dangerous right now. Like, take me to that moment, and what was a decision that you made to move forward out of that?
Yeah, I would have to say in my office, we call it the keyboard moment. I had spent about 3 or 4 hours documenting all my stuff over the course of a day. And at the end of the day, our electronic medical record crashed and all of that work was erased.
Oh my God. I just got chills when you said that. I can imagine. I mean, oh my God.
So then about 5 seconds later, my keyboard was in pieces on my desktop. So basically I snapped my keyboard in half. And that was probably the peak of my frustration. Probably within a couple months after that, things were not getting better. There was no improvement. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, you know what, maybe it's better if I'm not around. That's kind of like the thought process that I had got to. But as soon as I thought that, it was like kind of electric shock went through my body. And I was like, I'm like, that's a dangerous place for me to be, or to be thinking about those things. And immediately from then forward, I was like, I have to start making some changes. And it was like multiple steps. And this is part of it was a process that I went through, and it was very, I would say, unorganized at the time, but I knew I had to make changes. And I think in retrospect now, I realized the things that were really driving my burnout, and there's a definite process and steps. And that's the attraction to writing the book for me. The book was really 80%, therapy for me, and 20% maybe it could help someone else. But I just wanted to document the process and give people maybe a head start or a leg up on getting that burnout better.
So give me, my next question, give me some of the process. Like, what are the steps that now you've turned it into a structure that other people can follow in the book?
Well, that's, again, a great question. And I've thought a lot about this, and that's really kind of the structure of the book. But I feel like, to a certain extent, you get to a certain point in your life and you have built yourself a life of your own choosing, or, maybe a lack of choosing. And so you're in this construct, and I kind of thought of it, I think it was like a box. Your floor is the, kind of the sum total of all your past life experiences. You have your health and fitness wall, you have a financial wall, you have social and spiritual walls, you have your work environment wall, and you have your ceiling, which typically those can be kind of your limiting beliefs. And in order for me, attack burnout, I had to fix pieces of all those things. I started to work on my sleep. That's one of my favorite things that I like to talk about, is sleep is a great thing. All you have to do is lie down and relax. I started to work on my nutrition, my fitness, my relationships with my family, my finances, my work environment. We made some pretty radical changes. And then mentally, I think it was quite important for me. I had to make some paradigm shifts mentally to divorce the big one for me was to divorce my ego from my need to be the most productive person in my practice, and the partner who, did the most surgery and generated the most money and all these other things. And I found out that if I actually took a day off a week, that was okay. I was still a good doctor, and I still was pretty darn productive, but it made a giant mental change in how I approached life. And really, it was kind of more like I gave myself permission to take care of myself.
That is it's such an important point that you just made. And I know, I can relate to that. I'm a very busy, productive person. I love being busy. I know. You do know.
I do know.
I love it. Like, it's a rush for me. Some people jump out of planes. Some people do like base jumping. I love my work. I have a great sense of pride and accomplishment in my work. I have a lot of value and fulfillment that comes out of my work. There's a lot of love, right? Yep. So when I get to work with amazing people like you, like, it fills me up, right?
Yep.
And if I'm not careful, I will wrap around that identity, and I'll think like, that's who I am. I'm just a really busy, busy, busy person. And I've also observed that with my own energy levels, because any of you have known me for any period of time know that I have an insane amount of energy naturally, right? So when you're a really high performing person that has a lot of energy, that's a very dangerous combination, because then you're just working all the time. You have your identity wrapped around that. And then you hit this wall one day, you wake up, you're doing way too much stuff. You haven't focused on self-care. You don't even remember why you got so wrapped up in all of this to begin with. And then not only do you have to like face that and lean into that, but then you have to start to unravel that belief system and create new agreements. You have to figure out like, what are my core values? I know I'm speaking to you because I got the sneak peek in your book and it's awesome. So talk to me about that side of the process. Like, you've admitted burnout, you're kind of facing it, you're taking these steps. Go ahead.
And again, I think part of it too, for me, is that a lot of people go to medical school and when they're done, they're like, I'm a doctor. And that becomes their persona for everything. They're a doctor in the gym. They're a doctor, with their financial planner. They're a doctor when they're buying a car. It's very hard for, I think, sometimes physicians to divorce that persona, because you've spent so much time becoming that person, becoming that kind of career or calling or passion, whatever you like to term it. But I think what I like to think is that yes, I am a person who is a doctor, but I am a person who has lots of other sides.
Yeah.
And it is very important to, I find that, it's like the old saw, in case of emergency on the plane, you're going to put on your own, life preserver first and then help others. I'm like, if I finally got to the point where it was like, if I don't take care of myself, there's going to be nothing left of me to take care of anyone else. So that was really kind of a hard lesson to learn. And I kind of basically had to kind of put my ego in park and actually really concentrate on myself and getting myself better and putting myself first. Like, I'm like, I'm going to exercise every day, period, dot. Like that's going to happen no matter what happens. And so, you have to, again, give yourself permission and priority to do that for yourself.
Gosh, exercise is really important. I kind of poo-pooed it when I was younger and I was like, oh, I'm a badass. It's fine. But then I started to realize how much it regulates my emotions and my mind. And it's like, oh, this is important for
your energy and how you
yeah.
feel. You're more relaxed. I think you think clearer. I think there's a million advantages to exercise. So,
Yeah,
and the studies all show it probably increases your life expectancy by, whatever, 50 to 70%. And the studies also show that there's basically no limit to the benefit that exercise brings as you continue to increase exercise to, fairly high amounts. It doesn't have to be, ultra marathoning every day, but there's significant benefits and reduces, we have a prescription pad in my office. Would you like me to write your prescriptions with something that'll reduce your risk of like all-cause mortality, diabetes, heart attack, everything? And it just says exercise daily. And we give that to patients.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you're so cool. Yeah. All right. So talk to me about your book. Okay. So The Doctor is Burned Out, coming out September 29th. It's going to be epic. You're doing a lot of live streaming, building up into the launch to build awareness around this, to build your platform, to really, I look at it as an opportunity for other doctors or even business owners, right? Corporate employees to just observe. They're not ready to admit anything. They are nervous to talk about it, but they're going to be tuning in and saying, like, you're speaking to me right now. So yeah, go ahead.
No, but I'm just saying, like, I think for me, I want to take the opportunity to kind of normalize the fact that it's okay to have these conversations, because right now I think there's this twin thing where physicians think that they have to be perfect and they can never be wrong. And, obviously there are legal and malpractice manifestations of those types of things, but you're kind of it's drilled into that you have to be perfect at all times. And then I think the other problem is there is I'd say a not insignificant risk if you start to admit that you have medical problems to the organizations that license you. They could say, you know what, we think that maybe you can't be a doctor anymore. So what do physicians do? They cover it up, they bury it. They don't admit that they have a drinking problem, or they maybe have substance abuse issues, or they felt suicidal. Some studies show that up to 14% of physicians have felt suicidal within the last year. One doctor a day in the United States.
Gosh.
Yeah, one doctor a day in the United States kills himself. So that's really why I wrote this book, is to help people know that if this happens and it's okay, you're gonna be okay. You're not alone. You're not trapped. You're not powerless. You just have to A, give yourself permission to take care of yourself, and B, look for some help and get yourself some help.
COVID disrupted pretty much everything. And I'm grateful for many things, but one of the things I'm grateful for is that people are waking up to the fact that we can't live in silence anymore, and we can't live in denial anymore. And that's not freaking working. So when I think about this opportunity for your book launch, Jeff, it's way more than making you number one and kudos for me. That's not your heart anyway. I think that if I had a charge or a call to action for anybody listening right now, it would be to please help us share this message. Not just oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea, Amber, but actually share this message. If you're on Facebook, on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you can start a watch party, or you can share this on your feed or in a private group. You can share this to your email list for all of our internet marketing friends out there. Send it to your family. Like, don't make any prejudgments, and you're only going to look like the hero if you share this. You could save lives by talking to people about Jeff and his book and inviting them into his live stream show. So it's happening weekly. It's on Facebook. It's going to be on YouTube. We're going to be sharing it. I'm telling my entire network about Jeff. He is really showing up in a beautiful leadership role. Jeff, you're still practicing. You were just in the OR. You're a busy guy, and yet you still
two hours ago. Yeah,
do
I was in the
this.
OR 2 hours ago. So.
Well, so what can we do to support? I mean, like, if you had a charge and a call to action, and you can say, yeah, what Amber said, that's fine. But what can we really do to help you launch this book and to support the live stream? Like, what do you really want from the world right now?
I would love it if, like you said, people can share the message. They can head on over to our website, jeffmoodymd.com, can sign up for our email list. We can get on, we can start a conversation. Really, I want to make sure that people know that we want to connect. We want to help you. We have services and I guess tools really to help you realize what's going on and what we can do to help you. I want to kind of stop the isolation and kind of the desolation. I think that physicians feel like, well, if I'm not perfect, I can't practice and I can't ever get help because then they'll take my license away. That's all BS. That's all just bologna sandwich. People need to give themselves a little more credit. And I think, again, as we normalize and widen this conversation, it's going to be more socially accepted. And I'm obviously taking a risk, kind of exposing myself, so to speak. But I feel that strongly. It's, again, 80% of the book was therapy for me. But 20% is I hopefully, find somebody else who can get, utility out of it and find a way out of maybe their own personal darkness.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you a final question. And I'm going to ask you, there's something else that's in your heart to share. What would it be? And I'm going to pre-frame this for you. You could be thinking about the you years ago who was smashing that keyboard in half, and what would you have wished that somebody would have said to you in that moment? Or you could imagine a doctor or a business owner or an employee or a stay-at-home mom, anybody who's feeling that burnout, and they're listening and they're watching you, Jeff, and they're just thinking, give me anything. What can you tell me right now? So what is in your heart to share as a parting message?
I would say if you're feeling frustrated or alone or trapped in whatever either work environment or situation they're in, is that there is help. There's help everywhere. Please allow yourself to avail yourself of that help and just take some positive action. People ask me, when I was talking to them about the book, they're like, okay, boil it down to me. How do I beat burnout? I'm like, well, okay, it's a 200-page book. But the thing I always tell people is pick the one thing that is making you making your blood boil the most. Write down one thing you think you can do and give yourself a deadline. That's how you start. And you take that action, and that will be the thing that gets you on the path to getting better. As far as maybe talking to the person I was 5 years ago, I would have probably said, park your ego at the door and let's, have a real conversation about what you want out of life and where you want to go.
Gosh, I hear that. I've observed that you really have to just face yourself, face the truth, stop denying, lean in. I love that, lean in. And I just feel like a follow-up question, man, because I could intuit somebody, watching this. And I asked myself, well, how do I ask for help? And where do I ask for help? Now, one thing that you can do is go to Jeff's website and literally send a contact form message saying Jeff, how do I ask for help? Where do I go? And you can respond that way. That's a safe next step. But is there anything else maybe I tell my spouse, or maybe I write a letter to myself, just some way of getting it out there?
I think that we started at the beginning, realizing that you may have a problem is the first step. So maybe admitting it to yourself is probably the first step. And then I guess I would probably start with, again, what you think is driving burnout the most. If it's work, let's have a conversation with your, your immediate supervisor, your employers, or if you're the boss, have a conversation with your whole company and have a conversation about how to improve the work environment. If it's relationships, you need to have some honest conversations with those people. If you're really feeling like you're having medical, issues like depression and suicide, 1-800-SUICIDE is the national suicide hotline. There are hotlines in every state and county as well. Suicide is a big issue in my state. So I feel very strongly about that. So again, you're not trapped, you're not alone, you're not powerless. I think you just have to realize that there is help and you can avail yourself of that help in many different ways. But you have to A, realize there's a problem, and B, start to take a step. And if that step is contacting us, we're thrilled to help.
Yeah, I agree. And definitely pick up Jeff's book. You can go to the website, sign up to get notified upon its release. And my parting message too is just that if you are feeling these ways, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you suck, you can't handle it, like you're less than, you're not worthy. That was something else, is like, since my identity was wrapped up into that, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't handle it. Like I'm not good enough. And that's not true. What's true is that I'm human. This is normal. We live in an insane culture right now. The demands and pressures have never been higher. We're working 7 days a week around the clock, and technology is only advancing that anxiety and that feeling like we have to do more and more and more. And humans are not designed for that kind of load. So it's not that you are a bad person. It is just that you are human experiencing a challenge. And now it's time to just own that and do something with it.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better.
I freaking love you, Dr. Jeff Moody. Like, what an honor to work with you, to share this space with you, to be a part of getting your book out into the world, and to host the first, session in your live streaming show. This was very meaningful for me personally. So thanks.
Great.
All right, guys.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time, I guess.
We'll see you on the next one. Subscribe to Jeff's YouTube channel, on his Facebook page. Go to his website, sign up for his email list, and be a part of the launch. Do something that's meaningful. It'll make you feel better as well. Share this with friends. All right, guys. We'll see you later.